Great. So we're now on to our second of four resolutions this morning. This one is on global girls' education. It's proposed by Anne Davison, our Vice President for International Affairs, and Abby Hunt, who is a Network 18 to 30 member of NCW and has been very, very involved with us. Also supported by Sudra Sirivastava of the British Federation of Women Graduates and by Hasna Ahmed, the founder of Global One. Sorry, didn't read my note properly. So Anne and Abby are going to be presenting. Anne's here and Abby will be joining us on Zoom. So I will set my timer and over to you, Anne. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ginny. National Council of Women, in conference assembled, reaffirms its 2023 resolution on girls' education, adding the following points: the need for a significantly increased focus on women and girls in overseas aid budgets. The OECD reports a faltering in donor emphasis on gender equality. It was one policy objective, among others, in 43% of DAC overseas aid programmes, and the principal objective in only 4%. The UK International Women and Girls Strategy commits the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office to including a focus on gender equality in at least 80% of its bilateral aid programmes by 2030. Almost 2/3 of the world's 775 million illiterate adults are women. So education is needed for women as well as for girls, so that they can contribute to the economy, peace, and protecting the environment from climate change. The number of girls at risk of female genital mutilation is increasing due to population growth. Education programs, girls and FGM survivors empowerment, and a significant boost to funding are all needed to tackle this. That's the text of the resolution that we'll be voting on. So last year, we passed this resolution stressing the importance of girls' education in order to tackle poverty. This was because the UN Commission on the Status of Women was focusing on the topic of poverty this year. And so we presented it there. The purpose of the Commission on the Status of Women is to review each year what progress, or none in some cases, or reversals even, has been made. So this year we'd like to raise similar issues, but developing what we have to say about women's literacy, about the designation of overseas aid, and about female genital mutilation. So it's because of past discrimination, although girls' enrolment in primary schools is catching up somewhat, past discrimination means that adult women are much more illiterate than men, including their numeracy skills. Only about half of women and girls over 15 are literate in low-income families, and 72% countries, and 72% in lower middle-income countries. So there have been some innovative UK-funded projects which have, for example, provided education for women enslaved in domestic work, and we'd hope to see more like this. Being literate, of course, means that women can seek and use information on health, nutrition, and education of their households. They're also empowered to have a role in society. Women and girls' education helps lift households, communities, and countries out of poverty. So whilst primary school enrolment for girls has improved in many countries, Afghanistan has taken the denial of women and girls' rights to an extreme. On top of the denial of education and jobs, our sisters there are now required to cover up completely and not to speak, sing, or recite anything aloud in public. I think we would agree with UN experts that this amounts to gender apartheid. There is no internationally recognised crime that can explain the intensity of it. Another shocking issue is female genital mutilation. It came up at the last Commission on the Status of Women that getting girls into education would help to end child marriage. Education in the affected countries is also vital to end FGM. And I'm very pleased that last year the UN government helped to run a session on this topic, which I attended. More than 12,000 girls a day are at risk and rising. At the discussion, we heard that there are over 230 million survivors of this scourge, which deprives them of their human rights. Most are in Africa, then Asia, and then the Middle East. And the resulting physical and psychological damage costs the health sector $1.4 billion in just under 10 countries. Additionally, new data from the University of Birmingham suggests that FGM is a leading cause of death in practicing countries, with a girl dying every 12 minutes. The good news is that 2 in 3 people in affected regions think it would stop. It should stop. Although why it's only 2 in 3, I don't know. The bad news is that though rates have declined, population growth is outgrowing efforts to prevent it. So what will help? A key need is to empower girls, which education can help with, and to educate communities, busting the myths that support this practice. Education can help to change norms and unequal power structures. Specific laws on FGM are important, but so is awareness of the laws and enforcement. Also, data on prevalence is needed, especially in Asia, so that it can be properly addressed. Governments need to prioritise girls' rights in laws and in policies, to involve survivors in policy development and to amplify their voices. Support is needed for trailblazing grassroots initiatives. For example, one thing we heard about at the Commission on the Status of Women last year was about a project to empower widows. And what happened was the widows were trained in all the disbenefits and risks and dangers associated with FGM. And they took this message around to local health professionals, and the practice was stamped out in that local area, because surprisingly, health professionals are often involved in the practice. Sustainable Development Goal 5.3, set by the United Nations, is to end FGM. But as we said, only 4% of bilateral aid prioritises gender equality, so much more focus is needed. For example, 27 times as much aid is needed to stamp out FGM. And now I hope, if she's able to get online and can turn on her camera and speak to us, that we can welcome Abby Hunt to second it. We're hoping to attend the Commission on the Status of Women again next March. Potentially we'll have at least, well, we know that at least one member will be attending in person, and some of us will also be attending online. So really this resolution and also our continued focus on climate change are what we will be promoting, and your support makes it possible for us to have a strong voice internationally, because we know that you have your backing, that we have your backing. So thank you for all the support you give to our international work.
It doesn't look as if we've got Abby, unfortunately.
Yeah, quite possibly her internet has gone down. So
It could well be.
I think we're fine as we are.
Yes. Was there anything you wanted to add, Anne, or shall we go to discussion?
No, that's right, because I made the point about
Yeah,
point about overseas aid budgets, and Abby was going to expand upon that. Abby attended the Commission on the Status of Women for us last year, and she reported back on this overseas aid issue. So we do actually have a nice leaflet on the outcomes of the last Commission on the Status of Women, including Abby's report. So we'll circulate that to members, and you'll have that. That will be brilliant, won't it?
Super. Thank you, Anne. Lovely. Thank you so much. So we are open for discussion now. Just turn that off, I think, yes. Comments? Any comments in the room? Any comments on Zoom? I've got, oh, Abby Hunt has joined. I've just seen her, Keith.
Oh, wonderful.
Abigail.
Hello, sorry about that. My Zoom kept crashing. I managed to get my sister's laptop, so
No problem.
yeah, huge apologies.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's lovely to see you. So we'll open the floor to you to do your seconder speech, okay?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I focused on overseas aid and budgets, and I kind of wanted to explore what the FCDO are doing in the UK, and then expand widely and look at the OECD to kind of see what they're doing and what their analysis kind of says on a more overseas level. So under the 2022 to 2024 Sunak government, a policy paper exploring the UK government support for girls' education worldwide was published in February 2024, which stated that the UK government was working to provide quality education for all children, guided by the global objectives of access and learning in low and lower middle income countries by 2024. This was agreed to during G7, so under Boris Johnson. These objectives importantly included the introduction of 40 million girls in school and 20 million more girls reading by the age of 10. So the SCDO promisingly has also an education, gender and inclusion research team, which supports through bilateral, multilateral and research in more than 100 countries. And this project is really interesting. And it's titled Girls Education Challenge Phase 2. So Phase 1 was successful, and it's the world's largest fund of 500 million dedicated to girls' education, which aims to reach over 1.6 million marginalised girls with quality education and learning opportunities. And there's a really good page on the SCDO website if you want to look in more into kind of where they've allocated those specific budgets. However, indeed, challenges persist. And to reiterate, the stark figures that Anne presented is the figure currently estimates 129 million girls remain out of school around the world. So the OECD has reported in 2021 to 2022, so not that updated, but I think they're going to do a recent report coming out this year, that gender equality was a policy objective in 43% of the programs funded by bilateral official development assistance, committee members, etc. And those programs amounted to 64 billion US dollars out of the 147.9 billion screened against other kind of economic and development kind of gender issues. So education kind of doesn't really get that important development money and needs to be allocated in other countries. There has been an increase though. There was 60 billion allocated in 2019 to 2020, but there has been a decrease from the 45% share over that period. It's a relative drop and the first after a decade of regular growth, which raises concern about policy intentions of donors. Out of the 43% of total bilateral aid programs aiming to promote gender equality, the latter was the principal objective for only 4%, and one significant policy objective, amongst others, for the remaining 39%. This is a clear issue which needs to be addressed with gender-responsive public expenditure management, a tool which can be harnessed effectively to ensure that countries are able to better align spending with gender equality objectives within wider education plans. Moreover, the report Spending Better for Gender Equality in Education, published in January 2024, presents analysis from a joint research project by the United Nations Girls' Education Initiative and the Malala Fund, which again, I really recommend reading, regarding the need for a strategy for donors seeking to advance girls' education, which needs to be nested within the political economy analysis. So this gender-responsive public expenditure management is a really good tool. And I think the SCDO are kind of making steps to use it within their own phase 2. It'd be great if that could be more of a commitment. Overall, the UK government's commitment to improving girls' education is commendable, but must be matched by these effective strategies that address the ongoing challenges exacerbated by the pandemic. Implementing gender-responsive public expenditure management and ensuring robust funding mechanisms are critical steps towards achieving gender equality in education and empowering millions of marginalised girls worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Abby, so much. Just stopping my timer. So brilliant. Even with that, you were within your 12 minutes. Well done. Oh. Fabulous. So do we have comments, observations, thoughts on what Anne and Abby, who's two colleagues over there? If you just give your name and then your comment, please.
Heather Carter, Darlington and District Branch. You mentioned Afghanistan, and we recently had a talk from Darlington Assistance for Refugees, and Fran brought along 2 asylum seekers, and one was called Hamassa, and she was a dentist from Afghanistan seeking asylum because obviously of the inequalities for women in Afghanistan. And we've just heard this week that the Home Office have turned down her application and deemed that it is safe for her to return to Afghanistan, which obviously is extremely debatable, but it may be safe, but she's obviously not going to be able to practice as a dentist.
Goodness, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It depends if you define mental health as safety as well, doesn't it?
Indeed, yes. And another comment, yes, please.
Thank you, Jill Minty, Darlington Branch. I just wonder, obviously a lot of this is focused on government contributions, etc. Given that the charity sector has been working on this for zillions of years, you know, how do the two link together? Because there must be lots of smallish charities who are doing great work in this field of women's education. Do they link at all?
Yes, they do. Like, I mean, government sometimes gives funds to charities because they know that they've got such a good reach, for instance. And the charity sector, you know, on the whole, really gets it and pushes the equality agenda because they know that poverty and lack of women's rights are linked, and that the way for developing countries to develop and recover is to help women. Also that educated women have much better outcomes for their families. They tend to marry later, they have fewer children, better spaced, the survival rate of their children is better, and the health of their children is better. So yeah, the charity sector is a very important ally, and we're in touch with charities like Action Aid.
Thank you. Just looking, anyone online got any comments? Just looking to see.
It's Hilary. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Hilary. Yes, indeed we can.
It's just to add to the mounting difficulties internationally is the fact that there is millions of displaced people now due to many conflicts, which seems to be just getting worse by the day. So I just wondered where all world governments, as well as our own, and the charities are managing with that, because people are now living in, well, they're not living in communities or towns where they can access education. They're living on the streets, a lot of them. So, and I know their first priority is just to stay alive and to be able to eat. But it seems to me that it's going to be a long-term problem, that where they're going to go, of course, but also they do need to, the children will deserve to have support and education as they're being displaced around the world. So I just wondered how all these different charities, and we're managing that side of things. And again, it goes back to what I said at the end of my resolution, was NCW sort of working with other charities to sort of support what's already out there, and to put our voice, our small voice, but a loud voice, I would hope, to the many voices for all these difficult situations that the world is in. What can we actually do that will make a difference? Who can we support, and how are they coping at the moment? Because it's just extreme, or it feels it is.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, this is why charities do get involved in campaigning as well as raising money, because, this is such a huge issue, and their voice is also heard at UN Fora alongside ours. But I mean, you're quite right to raise the issue of displacement of people, which is only going to get worse with climate change. And actually, that is also a gender issue, because it's easier for the men to move and get themselves out of harm's way than for women and children. So, we're working very hard on climate change.
Indeed.
We're talking, making our voice heard at international level. We have the representatives here, really delighted to have them from the International Council of Women, where we're also pushing this point. And I think another thing that charities are doing is trying to make sure that women continue to have access to contraception, because, as you say, population is a challenge too. Yeah. Does Abby want to say anything? Oh, oh my word.
Abby, did you want to add anything?
I think
Youngest member has just arrived.
Yes, yes. Sorry, Abby, go on.
I think in terms of girls' education, there's like Plan UK and those kind of things. I think they do a lot of really good reports. I know the Girl Guides as well get involved a lot. And at the Commission on Status of Women, when I've gone to New York, education is always a really key topic out there, but one in which I think they sometimes forget to engage with younger stakeholders and kind of ask them as well their own experience of education, kind of look towards the future maybe. I don't know, I think my experience of advocacy at the UN stage, I'm incredibly grateful to NCW for allowing me to do, has kind of meant that they've been talking a lot about young women, but necessarily not engaging with them. And there's an amazing opportunity where like Plan do engage with these girls, and you get to meet girls from all around the world that have a lot to say about education in their own country and rights in which they're trying to advocate for, but there's not necessarily that much engagement with them when we're out there. So I think that's something that can also be advocated for, that kind of, young people focus.
And you've joined an International Council of Women network for young women, haven't you, Abby?
Yeah.
Thank you as well for that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Abby. I think that's really important. I think what strikes me is that there are so many overwhelming statistics about the issues of girls' education internationally. And I think what we need to be able to really understand it, if you like, are the personal stories, like Heather's story of the individual woman who is being returned to Afghanistan. Abby's point about actually meeting the young women who are involved, because it's only really by understanding individual perspectives and what these global issues mean for individuals, that we can really, I think, empathise with them and really understand them. And it's come up in a number of other places within NCW just in the last few months, this notion of individual histories, individual stories. And I'm feeling there's a thread there. So thank you so much for raising that and for bringing it into the context of your very important resolution. So Anne and Abby, a round of applause. Thank you so much for that. We've got just a short comfort break now. Oh, I'm so sorry. Have I got people waiting to... I do apologise. Have I missed somebody? Somebody sent a message. Oh, I'm sorry. It hasn't come up on mine, or I'm just not seeing it. Oh, sorry. I was looking at my one here, which I thought was my window on the world, but... Sorry. So sorry. Chinwe, you have a comment to make, I think. My apologies for overlooking that. Would you like to address the assembled multitude?
Oh, yes, please. Can you hear me? Just to be sure.
We can. Yes, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Can you see me now, please?
Give us a moment. Yes, we can. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Chinwe Cross. I use poetry as a form of activism. So I've always written poetry from my teenage years, and my interests are in women's equality, human rights, and identity, issues of identity. I use poetry to explore relationships between traditional beliefs and modernity. So I think what I want to say here is just as an observation growing up all my life as a young girl in Nigeria, and the things the happenings around me, issues about women. What I've come to understand is most of the problems faced by gender equality is as a result of a tight system put in place by the patriarchy. But I think it's also important for us to understand that there's some women who play a horrible role in this as well. I think it's important that women are also educated in these matters and made aware of the implications these could have on their daughters if they can't support these movements or campaigns that we hold, these forms of activism. What I want to ask is, please, do you have a system whereby you monitor these international organizations, like you have the main headquarters here, and then you have the sister organizations in other countries? So I give an example, Nigeria. The reason I ask this is because of some things I have, that has happened. So most times I get people who write to me. These are women who are not tech savvy, who say, please, these are the problems they're facing. Are there organizations I know that can assist them? And because I know of some organizations, I, on their behalf, say, okay, I will get back to you. I will ring you. So I write to these organizations on their behalf. Organizations in Nigeria who have parent organizations here in the UK. They just blank me. They ignore me. I wait 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, nobody answers. And then I come back to the parent ones here to say, please, this is what's happening. How can you help? Can you please liaise with your sister organization in Nigeria? So they apologize. The ones here in UK will apologize, and then I will wait. And then I will hear back from the sister organization in Nigeria, only because the parent ones here, chased them up. So when you talk about organizations in international organizations, involved in campaign movements and stuff, how do you measure the work they do? Because I believe that they would only want you to know or see or read reports on what they want you to know. That's it. How do you actually know what's going on there? This is where my concern is. because I think everyone should be held accountable for what they think, what they say they're doing.
Indeed. So,
Sorry, I mean, it is very important to me, because I believe in whatever form of expertise that we're interested in, you know, whatever we do in life, I believe in humanity.
indeed.
So when that human actually comes to you, approaches you, do you actually do what you have pledged to do? That's it for me.
Thank you. That's a pretty challenging question. I'm going to look to Anne and indeed Ludovina and Martine for a possible response, because I think Chinwe, you're particularly interested in the global response, how we as an organisation, as part of a network of other organisations, are able to respond. Have I understood that correctly? Yeah.
And the joining up of the person.
And the joining up.
Yes.
Which is what I was mentioning before. Yes, indeed. Ludovina, you have the microphone, please.
So, good morning, everybody. So I'm just making a very quickly answer for ICW. For ICW, we don't intervene in the countries. We are, let's say, umbrella organization. And if we want to know what is going on in Nigeria, we go through our council in Nigeria. And there is a council, they work very, very well. They have now they have a president that is very active. They are really, really making lots of advocacy for women, for education, for violence against women. So we cannot address directly the NGOs in Nigeria, as we won't do this for UK. If we want to go to know what's going on UK, we will ask Jilly, and we cannot. In each country we have a national country that acts locally, and we can address other organizations in countries where we don't have any council. Is a kind of mutual respect. So, and Abby, what Martin decided to do last year was to create a young group working on the subjects, because young people are our future. All of us, we are not old people. We are not very young, but we have to prepare the future generation. So Martin decided to set up this kind of committee, which was not so easy, because it's not very easy to launch this kind of things within ICW. And we asked, they are led by a lady from the Portuguese country. She's our youth advisor. And we asked each country where we have a council to nominate a young member. What we call young is less than 40, and to be part of this group. But we are quite, I'd say, disappointed, because we just have 10 people, and we need other countries to join. You have one, sure, and UK was one. You were part of the founding, yeah. So it should be interesting, because this late they have meetings, they are discussing, and as last conversation I had with the leader of this group, she said that she was surprised, because each country has very different problems, concerns, but they have some constants that are the same, and they were very happy to work on their countries and to make a kind of reflection and work that will serve later for ICW and for women. We are here for women, not for ICW only. Okay?
Thank you, Ludovina. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. So I think, Chinwe, I hope that's gone some way to answer your question. I think you're posing absolutely the right challenging questions to all of us involved in national and international organisations, because we're working obviously at those levels, but I think bringing these individual perspectives together with the national view is one of the things we can do and can take the lead in. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, have I missed anybody else? No, I don't think so. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Anne and Abby, very much indeed for that very insightful resolution. And thank you for all the contributions.